Okay, guys, so hopefully we're all up and running here and it's got my voice. I did some changes to the just a few minutes ago to the volume. I Nobody said anything. Everybody seemed to say that the volume was fine, but I thought there were some levels I could adjust, and I found a setting that I had not found previously in Windows after really scouring around that I think should boost the microphone a little bit. And as said, over time we'll be updating our hardware and and also our encoder and our understanding of things and everything. But I just want to dive right into it. Of course, we had Memorial Day weekend. I hope everybody had a nice weekend. I hope things are going good for you poker wise and otherwise. We're basically in the real unofficial start of summer now, and it's still, we had some nice days here. I live in the Northeast. Like I said before, I live in the Hudson Valley. We've had New York State, north of New York City. We've had some nice days. Like today was beautiful. It was like the first summer like day or second summer like day, but today was the best day so far. And we've also had some days that it was like something out of Braveheart. Like it was just lush green forest and tons of rain and cold and foggy. So hopefully we're breaking into a nice summer here because it was indeed a long winter. But yeah, now, I'm hearing a lot of words and rumors and things like that about, well, it's not rumors, it's true that, the summer isn't the best time for poker. I think June, which we're entering in just, shortly here, is arguably June and July are probably the worst 2 months of the year. And you say, well, worst, what is worst? Worst is lowest traffic, lowest, I guess, ratio percentage of recreational players and or fish, bad players basically. At that time of year, they have many other options as to what to do. Because they can go outside and they have whatever else. They're not at college anymore. They're not at school. There's all different reasons, but those are not great months for profit and things like that. But we're going to take it as a challenge and we're going to keep learning. We're going to use it as a chance to know that we're playing against some of the better competition that we'll be playing against in a few months and then into the winter in 4, 5, 6 months. So we understand that. And I think we're going to get a lot of good information out of populations. I think we're going to get to clearly define all of our ranges from different positions. I think it's going to be good for us. Now, I had last video I had made, I had jumped up to 25 and L, which I had some crazy sessions after that. I had one especially crazy session after that video, which I'm going to go over. I'm going to go through my database on DriveHUD and go through some hands. Very quickly, I got involved in some 50 plus dollar pots over and over again. I took a couple horrendous beats all in for 50 plus dollar pots where I was an 80% plus favorite. Again, in all reality though, guys, you're 81% favorite. You got to think you're going to win that 810 out of 1,000 times. The other 190 times you're going to take that beat. So it's really not that radical of a beat. And once you start to play poker more, you'll realize losing with 80% equity is routine, especially in a short sample. That is just totally standard. I also had a couple where I was 11%, one specifically, and I'll show it to you guys. I was 11%. Um, the jump up in stakes and the larger swings that I'm ever used to, much larger swings, it immediately is testing the mental game and control, which has already gotten better. But the first and second day after I made that last video, got involved in some really difficult spots and I was losing. I was really not getting I wasn't hitting the board well. I wasn't being able to strike value. I just wasn't winning at the rate I had been. And right away, my mental game started to be tested more than ever. And, I was surprised at how well I adjusted. It started out not good, but there was a couple times where I had to find the fold button, and all of a sudden, I mean, I know I'm beat. I know what villain's range is. I know I'm behind. There's nothing there that I beat, and instead of I go to the fold button, all of a sudden my mouse drifts over to the call button, and the next thing you know, you got the I'm clicking the all in button. And of course, one time in specific, I mean, I knew the guy had aces or kings on the flop. I had jacks. It was a big 4 bet 5 bet pot. It was, and I shoved into it. And he called with kings, and I had jacks, and the board was a low run out board, and I hit the jack on the turn. I mean, it was an 11%er when the money went in. So I've been through some crazy stuff. I had a $50 swing in that session. I was $50 down. I've never been that much down in an online poker session. I came back to $9 down. It was wild. I went on a bit. I don't even know what we'll call a downswing. It's not enough hands. That's the same. The more experience you get, the less emotional and dramatic you get over these things. But I dropped about, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 buy-ins total. But Ignition at 25 and L, but remember, two of them, almost two buy-ins full, were profits. So I'm still back. I think I'm losing at 6 big blinds per 100 at 10 and L, at 25 and L on Ignition. I'm winning at 14 big blinds and change on Bet Online. I am finding Bet Online. The fact that it's not anonymous and that I have history on these guys is turning out to be more profitable. Further, there's a progressive rake race on Bet Online. It starts at 25 and L, so it's turning out to where I'm putting in more volume. I also did a long session on WPN this morning at 10 and L against all regs, and it was very fun and extreme. When I put this time in on these hard sessions, I can feel the next session what I've learned. I mean, it's definitely worth the time and the effort. And we haven't. I mean, we're still overall very profitable here. I mean, we haven't lost any money that we ever put into this. I mean, some of these sites I deposited $80 on originally, and $130, and they're up to well over 300-400 in some cases. So I mean, we're doing well, and we're learning a ton at a tough time of the year. What I want to direct your attention to right away here, though, is you're probably wondering what this is up on your screen here. This is DriveHUD. This is called DriveHUD EQ. This is their new equity calculator, and I've been playing around with this. They released the beta of this a few days ago, and I've been playing around with this. And at first, like every piece of software, I didn't know what I was doing, obviously. So I said, "What's this and this?" And then when I read a little bit, and again, it is just a beta. There's not a lot of instruction on this, but Freak Daddy on the 2+2 forums. Again, I encourage you guys to look up the DriveHUD thread on the 2+2 forums. It's going to give you a ton of information on how to use this HUD, and also it's going to give you. That's where you're going to get the updates first. When there's new beta updates and patches, this is where you're going to get access to them first. Is on 2plus2.com. You see my little thread up there, my forum server 2plus2. Just go to 2plus2.com. You can register an account for free. You don't have to register to view. But yeah, these are like the best poker forums and gambling forums and math forums on the internet. They're really interesting, and I think that there's a lot to look at there. But especially, this will keep you up to date on any specific software you're using. If they make it, they have a thread up on 2plus2 where you could discuss it with the developers. I mean, that's why the forum's so great. It's the access to great players and to developers of programs, and also to the networks. The 2plus2 has been great over the years in holding networks, not I guess indirectly accountable, by giving the player base a place to really voice their concerns and frustrations in one place, and what they like in one place, so that it has a wave effect in numbers, and that it really, if things are out of line with a site, they know, because 2plus2 is erupting with people complaining about it, about that network or that site, and it gets things done. I mean, there's power in numbers, guys, not just politically, but in everything. I mean, and I think 2plus2 has been really great in organizing those numbers over the years. But that's only one of the contributions, of course, that they've made to poker over the years. But I would definitely check out that site. But we come here, we download the new equity calculator, we start looking at this stuff, and this is really innovative, and I'll show you why. I used to be a big fan of this program right here, and I mean, I still am to an extent. I mean, I still use it, and it certainly has its purposes, but it's having less of a purpose as the Card Runners EV, Flopzilla, GTO Plus line of software, suite of software, is advancing. And now that there's DriveHUD EQ, I mean, I'm going to still use this and all the ranges that you put into Power Equilab, and there's also regular Equilab. It's free. Power Equilab is only, I mean, you can get it for as low as, I think, $4.95 a month. This is the professional version. But what it is a range calculator, and it's an equity calculation tool, and this is the matrix, and this is something you're going to really want to familiarize yourselves with, guys, is the starting matrix to the 64 square hands here that you could possibly be dealt. I mean, we have, of course, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 by 13, obviously. So and that's basically this stuff. Why am I not seeing this right? I'm trying to count total combos that I can show you guys, but it's not even really that important, because they show you the combos when you select things. Like right there, it's 6 combinations, and it actually shows them. But this is the starting matrix, and this is showing all of the possible starting hands that you could be dealt in the. And I said 64 before. I'm thinking of chess with the starting board with this with there's not the number 64, 32. These numbers become relevant for counting different patterns and things and tactics. But on this panel right here is every possible hand that you could be dealt starting. And as you see, it's a total of 1,326 hands total. Now, we don't see 1,326 here because many of these things, as we see, have 4 combinations. I mean, there's 4 total hands that make up Queen Jack suited because there's 4 suits, obviously. So what we're looking at is a total of 326 hands total spread about through this. And it, as we said, it's going to show us what the different combinations of those starting hands are. So rather than just selecting a hand and seeing that it has 6 combinations to it, we can select the starting range of hands. And this is what we're going to get into here and talk about range and things like that, because we don't know what our opponent's doing. We don't know exactly what hand he has in almost every situation of poker, but we know what range of hands he's playing. And we also know what range of hands, what we have, but we also know what range of hands we're representing based on how we played the hand. So you really want to start challenging yourself to think in range versus range rather than hand versus hand. That's not the way you want to go about modern poker and attacking hand reading. You will be drastically wrong. You will get exploited terribly. You want to start thinking, but let's just say we start this, and let's just say that it doesn't matter what position we start. As you see, I selected a range of hands. If I click apply, it brings that range of hands into this box here, which this is the things that Power Equilab does nice. It has some really nice attention to detail in certain things, which it's going to tell you. Now, if I had a board up there like a flop or I had another range, it would give me the base count of combinations in a vacuum, as you see up there, and also considering after card removal effects have taken place after another board would be entered, another range would be entered. And it shows me visually, without me having to reopen the window, what range of hands I'm being, what that looks like. So I don't have to go back into the range selection menu. So let's say that I'm playing that range of hands, this position, and then we're just going to say that we're going to get 3-bet or button squeeze. I mean, I have all different, you can save all your ranges and give them any title that you want whatsoever. So, and this is a good introduction. I think this program, more than Flopzilla even, is a good introduction, but I'm definitely going to highlight Flopzilla extensively because it's a great program. But Power Equilab does a lot of different things, and a lot of different pros use this at this point. But you find here just, it doesn't have to be crazy. Here, button, 3-bet, cold call 2. It doesn't have to be 100% here. We're just going to select that because it's actually a weighted range, and it's nice. And I'll explain what weighting means. Now we're going to put that in. And now as you see over here, it's evaluating, and it goes off. Now it's telling me exactly what the equity is of this range versus this range straight up with no boards entered, with no board cards entered. And that's really good and really helpful for a lot of reasons, obviously. But it also has things like hand range calculator where I could go to this range now and say, well, give me a range of hand. Construct a range that has at least 33% total equity against those 2 other ranges. And within a few minutes, not even a few minutes, quickly, it'll calculate a range for you and construct that. It'll go into hand range. These things here is like the heat map. It's showing you the equity for all the different hands and everything, but we're not going to get too far into Power Equilab right now. I'll highlight that in another video. I'm just giving you a basic rundown of equity calculators and what they did previously, and then I'm going to show you what DriveHUD's doing with their equity calculator that's innovative and I think is very next gen. So we have these 2 ranges in there. We could enter a board at random, which is nice. Now it's going to gradually do my Monte Carlo calculation of how that range and that range match up against that board and what their equity is. And now that we've put the flop in, we can go into here and actually see where these combinations are, of what pair, what percentage of the time they have that. That's 28.5. That's how many combos of one pair on that board are in that range. They'll have one pair. They'll have, like it'll say here specifically, top pair 6.4% of the time. You can compare that to the other range. I mean, these things are extremely important. Before you get into GTO, before you get into anything, you want to get into doing a lot of the math on your own, and then you want to get into an equity calculator like this one. It will help your game and your understanding of the game tremendously. And situations that were foggy previously they'll have a lot of light shed on them. And you can't remember these numbers, and it looks very daunting and overwhelming at first. They become intuitively known. You start to make decisions that are accurate, and you start to get ballpark numbers. Do we know exactly that it's 33.4% in a spot? No, but we've rounded it off to about 35%. That's good enough. But these things are great. Now, and I told you, it has this little equity calculator tool and everything, and that's good. And there's weighting and there's grouping. So the weighting is like I can say I only open in this range, I open Jack 10 suited, but I only do it a certain percentage of the time, and I can adjust that with the weighting options, right? So I would do this, and then I would assign a weight to a different combination of hands and say that I open it maybe, whereas here I open ace queen suited in this spot 100% of the time in my range. It's only going to be, let's say, 25% of the time or 30% of the time in this range on these two hands. So we can actually tell them with frequency. We can actually start getting into frequencies and things, which is great. And that's good. And that's what we've been doing for years with the equity calculators. But then when we open up, start to look at DriveHUD's new beta here, this is indirectly, you don't have to go to a third-party application. That's the first thing. You don't have to exit DriveHUD, your HUD, to pull up this equity calculator and use DriveHUDeq. That's great. There's no, a lot of the U.S.-facing sites with the HUDs that we're using with the way that they collect hands on like the anonymous networks like Ignition. We don't have the chance to take like they do on PokerStars and just 2-button click, basically import, load in a hand history from Poker Tracker 4. We don't have the chance to do it. So a lot of times we're left manually putting in ranges and things like that, and it's very tedious. When it's right in your HUD, and I'll show you just. Here's this thing, but this is actually really beautiful. I'll show you from the beginning just how we got there. But I'm going to leave this up here right now. But as you see, I'm in my HUD. I'm literally just pressing right-click, calculate equity. That's it. And this great tool up here, this equity calculator comes up. And with the new DriveHUDeq implementation, we're taking it a step further here with DriveHUD, is rather than just assign a weighting and saying I open Jack 10 suited 75% of the time from here, but I always open Queen Jack suited, and give it 100% weighting, give this one a 75% weighting, maybe come down and give pocket fives and the small pot, the baby pairs, maybe give them like a 33% weighting. Now we can actually tell the equity calculator, which is this new DriveHUDeq, well, we can go box by box and tell the calculator what we do with those combos, almost moving towards a GTO style of, people that are used to solvers are going to be very familiar with this. And we're going to tell it, look, okay, so we'll collect and we'll select everything we want. So you see as the purple represents check or fold. So we're going to click all the boxes of hands that we would check or fold in this spot. And we'll look at the board, we'll look at range, we'll calculate everything. But then we can denote call, bluff, value bet, raise, and then the best feature of all, in my opinion, is the auto range. I love this. You can actually use the equity calculator to assign instantly a hand range that's got all of the value bet raises, the bluffs, the calls, the check folds, and everything automatically assigned to it and everything by just clicking auto range, exiting, and pressing calculate. And it's going to actually assign a range to villain in that spot. That's amazingly accurate and better than we could come up with our own. We don't have to do it manually, and we could do it instantly. So that's where they're taking it here, the DriveHUD team at Ace Poker Solutions, to another level. And now they have a GTO solver, a GTO tool that they're going to be implementing like this too, but that's not out yet, and we don't have a ton of information on it, but I wanted to mention it first because the second we get information on it, we're going to be discussing it in a video because we're really excited about that one too, obviously. Again, we're talking about GTO calculators. We're talking about the equity calculators. We're talking about GTO tools. Apologies, I'm a little distracted down here. I've had the slightest little issue with spiders in my my little office here, and it's downstairs. It's it's in a finished basement, and it's nice. But as soon as the weather gets warm every year, we have some spiders, and I have a cat down here, so I certainly don't want the spiders running around. So you're going to actually, I guess, stay on the connection with me while I just kill this very quickly. Okay, we got it. Good. So we don't even have to waste any more time. I definitely apologize but this one was a little large. I only have them for like a month of the year, right when it first starts getting hot. And it wasn't even that bad last year, but I've seen a few of them this year, so I'm going to get something to deal with that because, as I said, I have a cat down here, and it's I don't want them around here either. I'm not a big fan of spiders. So anyway, I apologize for that. That's where things are. I mean, the equity calculator is one thing, the GTO is another thing, but to be combining the two of them and putting them into one program, such as DriveHUD, that's new. You won't see that if you look around at the best software out there. And we're going to go into depth, like I said, about other software. But you see already in this video, we're expanding. We're talking about these features. We're talking about Power Equilab. But we're going to start expanding because there's a lot of stuff out there. There's also a lot of stuff that you don't need. And we're going to get into that too so that you're not wasting your time tremendously. Or your money. I mean, that's really the key thing. I mean, if you're on a limited bankroll or you're in the micros or things like that, you don't have time to spend $800 or $1,000 on PioSolver, obviously, and see how you like it. You don't have an opportunity to do that. Obviously, same thing. $100 investment on something is an investment. You want to know that you're getting a return. That's the question: is what kind of return am I getting on my investment, and how long of a period of time will it take to see that return, and at what rate? So, that's really what things are about. And we can break that down. I'm going to discuss that. I'm going to actually show you what I think some of these sites subscriptions are worth to me and consider how many buy-ins they are per month and thing over time. So you can actually see what really is worth your time and your money and what's not, period, before you waste any on it of either. So, but this is really cool. There's predefined hand ranges. We could just select all the pairs, pseudo connectors, office connectors, all the typical stuff that you're used to in these equity calculators. I mean, it's right there and it's very easy to use. But this is where it's really exciting. So I'm going to come out of here and I'm just going to close this. This is from a hand I played that was a big pot on Bet Online against a guy who was sitting there at 25 and L with like $138 in his stack, and he had that much money on 3 tables. I have no idea what went on, and he was not. There was another player that was on multiple tables with well over $100. I don't know what went on at these tables before I showed up. I was on another network for a few hours before that came, and I obviously there was some chaos at these tables and huge pots, but this guy had this 130, and you could see it's obviously getting to his head a little bit. He was getting really out of line and getting very aggressive. So we're going to go right here and just get this off the equity calculator. So now we go up to and you'll see we had this huge dip. This is at 25 and L, all the way to where we were $36 down total. And then we came all the way back up to $25 total in the end. And that's about where we are now after, it's a very small sample. We're just really getting going and hitting our stride with this. But yeah, 25 and L has been crazy. But we're going to go through. This is more about these features and tools than my specific results this time. But we'll get into that too. So that because I always want to be, you know, open and candid about everything too. Because I'm going to take beats. I'm going to have bad sessions and bad days too. That's the way it is. And I have a lot to learn. As I move up, I'm going to be consistently around players who are better and better. So I'm going to have to get better and better. And that starts out by failure. That's how you get better, is from learning through failures at the beginning. So there'll be some rough times. There already have been, but it's made me grow as a player tremendously. And as a person, my tolerance for life in general, things that would get to me is much less after you take these beats or after you make a terrible play and know that you donated your money. Sitting in traffic for an extra 10 seconds because someone won't go when the light turns green, honestly, it affects you less. It just does. But let's look at the pot. So the net one was $24.83, so the total pot was over $50. We're going to go right up here. We just click on right click, and then when we go in there, we just click left click on calculate equity. We go up here, and this is why I don't want to spoil it, but I need to in order to really show the full advantage of this tool. He had 9-10 suited on this board. Now, the money went in on the turn, the ace wasn't dealt. I had kings. There you go. I stacked them. That's how I did it. He, on the turn, I'll show you the hand, but I led out almost like a pro bet on the turn. He shoved his 130 or whatever he had right over into the middle, and I snap called on the turn. And as you see, he had, when I think he had 5% when the money went in on the turn. So the ace bricked him, and I won the pot. It was a great pot. I had only been in the session for 5 minutes, and I did that, and I won another pot for $5 off him. So it was a nice little hit. But let's go back to pre-flop, and let's calculate the equity. Now, if we knew he had this pre-flop, that's how much equity he has. That's how much equity we have with these holdings. Now we can go to the flop, and we can calculate it again. Knowing what the holdings are, that's what we're getting. Now, if we go into DriveHUDeq right here, let's go to auto range and press save. Now, there it is right there. Now, sometimes it just froze up for a second. Like I said, it's a beta. Also, my computer's just a little slow right now. I've had this computer for years, guys, but when I bought it, it was top of the line, this laptop, and I haven't updated it or anything. I can't believe it's still going as well as it is, but like I said, I'm going to be upgrading that too soon. I've been thinking about that for a while, so. But here it is. It picks up basically what Villain's range is. What range of hands could he possibly have on this board? And it's assigning the combos as value combos, bluff combos, calling combos, or fold combos, check fold combos. That's new. And to do that quickly, and then press save, and there it is. I mean, right there, considering his range auto-assigned by the computer now, and this is what I'd be dealing with, isn't it interesting how close it is to what the equity calculation was when we knew what hand he had? So this is extremely effective, and it's going to give you quick insight into exactly what kind of combos you're dealing with in spots. I mean, just by going over your hand history. This is a new level of study that you can quickly incorporate into your regular hand study that you and database review that you've already been doing. And it's that quick. I think it's, and so of course that was auto range, but if we go back into range itself and I go into, you could enter the two specific cards, obviously that's what that's for. Pre-flop is to bring up this menu. And in this menu, we can of course edit on our own, we can erase it and put in our own ranges, but I think the auto range is really good because I mean, look how quick and accurate that is. And, so, but of course, if you want to go deeper and you want to get into a study situation, incorporate using this maybe with Power Equilab or Flopzilla, then you're going to want to assign some of your own ranges and things. But I just wanted to show you this because this is really new and unique. And, again, it's not Pio Solver that costs you $1,000. I mean, it's right there. And the beta's, I mean, this is going to be released. It's not going to be anything additional. This is just part of the DriveHUD project. So this is starting to prove not just this. I don't like to just say things to people. You say things to people, wow, this is a really innovative project. Well, why? Well, these are the kind of reasons why. And the GTO tool that they have coming up next and things. I mean, some of these things are just, I mean, like I said, I don't know a lot of details on it, but I know the general idea and that it's being incorporated into this equity calculator and that these things are basically going to feed off of each other to give you really quick, fast information, just really boost your study sessions and review of your hands and understanding of hands that other people played. I mean, it's really, imagine you go through and the kind of notes that you can take on people when you go through this in just an hour. If you go through yesterday's hands or the day before's hands or even last month's hands, all the hands that you tagged for that month. I mean, this is new and this is really cool. And I love this because I've gone over this. I've used some spots here where I hero called on the river to some bluff shoves and then some bluff overbets and called and was right. And when we broke down Villain's range, they basically, I mean, it was so good. It was exactly, where it should be. I mean, right. He had nothing but bluffs, basically. He had like 6 combos of value on the river. And I mean, he had like 80 combos of bluffs. Like, in other words, it was a terrible play that he made, but it was very accurate. I am very surprised very quickly how automated range calculation and range construction is this quick and this accurate through DriveHUD's DriveHUD EQ. So I wanted to show that to you guys because that's really, I mean, this is nice. The coloring is beautiful. I've always thought that, see, when we get to like the replayer, I've always liked Poker Tracker 4 stuff because they've had the customizable replayers and everything, but it's been there forever. It's been nothing new. I like the look of this. It's really colorful and everything, and it just, I don't know. To me, it looks less cartoony, a little more serious. But I like how they do this, and we can move these things around, the HUDs. That's in the next video. I think I should get to my HUD, so that you guys understand the HUD in general, more about my HUD that I'm constructing, and also just this will give you an insight on how to construct your own HUDs and things like that. But this was the hand. Here's the guy. He's got $135 in the stack. I just sat down at this table and this guy opened for 60. Now, early position, I've played enough hands already, which not even that many, but I played enough hands to know that early position in 25 and L opens to 60. I mean, we know the guy wants to open a wider range of hands than he would if he was opening, say, 3x or 4x. So, not that this, I mean, with kings, where there's only one thing we're doing anyway, but I size the 3-bet appropriately to his undersized bet because I want to get action on this. This guy calls, just cold calls in the small blind and in the big blind, rather. I'm in the small blind, and he calls. Now he comes out. Now I'm in small, so I lead out. Now I'm just betting 4 and a 645. It's obviously pure value here. He folds, which is not a surprise, and he calls. It comes down here to the twos. Now the board's paired. This I should not have done. The 7 into 14 looks terrible. Now it worked out for me. I got lucky. It made it look very weak to him, and it just worked out because I'm going to show you. But I think I haven't gone over this hand yet or posted it, but I think I posted it, but I don't think anybody really said anything, but not yet. But that's a really weak bet. But it looked like a probe weak bet to him, so he shoved the 129 into the middle, and now of course I can only collect what I've put into the pot. But I think it was just the psychological effect. I think he knew it was a bluff that I very well could be ahead, but I snap called. That's why I say when you start using the softer and things like that. Sometimes you snap called because you were on tilt. Sometimes you snap called because you just didn't think. Other times you snap called because you know the decision, and that was one of these. And he shouldn't have made the play that he did. It was I mean that's the other thing about plays. There's a lot of different opinions on plays and everything. I think that was really loose. Like I said, right away on another table, I won another nice pot off of him. He was just really loose, which in these games at certain times is going to, if you're really lag against some of these players, you're going to be profitable. Again, as you see, we got people's screen names now. We're collecting a database. It makes it difficult further. Fool me once, fine. It's going to make it. That's one of the things that I think makes this more profitable for me is because I know if you did this X, Y, and Z the first time, I'm not going to fall for that as easily, obviously, the second time, especially when I have a note specifically denoting that you took this betting pattern or you took this path to this hand. We're starting to get patterns. So a villain doesn't adjust, you're going to start knowing what he's doing. It's going to become extremely profitable. The anonymous network, I mean, we just have the session. There is no fool me once, shame on you. There is none of that. We don't know how many times the guy's fooled us before. We have no idea. I don't want to botch the whole fool me once thing and sound like George Bush there. I realize that. You realize since he said that years ago, nobody even wants to go down that one anymore and say that cliche. But anyway, this was a nice pot. We had some really nice spots and things like that. But the fact that, because I just wanted to show you the whole hand and show you, but like, look at his stats over 24 hands, 29, 20, 0. He doesn't 3-bet at all, but he's only had 6 chances to. I mean, it's such a small sample because this was my first session with this guy, and we're on 2 tables. So I got 24 hands on him, in just a minute or two. But we might even been on 3 tables together. I don't even remember. But he's, these games where, as I moved up to 25 now, there's obviously better players than there was at 10 and L. And there's also players that are just as bad as the worst players at 2 and L. I mean, I guess they just have more money, to burn, and they don't care, and they're not going to play for $2 stacks or $4 stacks. But this was, on every network, I'm seeing more players, but they're even more profitable. The 25 and L games on Bet Online here, because there are a lot of guys getting hands in. This is nothing. I mean, he's a decent player in that game. Some of these guys are any 2 cards and spots. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason to what they're doing. I'm not saying to take the games lightly, but I'm saying that I would think that you would find the Bet Online games at 25 and L easier than the Ignition games. And I also think there's less botting on Bet Online at this point than there is at Ignition. I think the anonymous atmosphere of Ignition makes it more conducive to botting, but I think both networks are extremely profitable. I don't see any reason to not play on both. I think you should if you're a U.S. player. You want to maximize your opportunities. But I just wanted to, get that in there because I want to always be directing you guys to playing in the right places and keeping it up on not just the latest game theory and everything, but the metagame of the poker world so that you're not, again, wasting your time in games that are less profitable games that you could easily be sitting in at the same time. So this is really, I mean, that's why this DriveHUDeq is great. It's solvers change things and everything. And we have people today. This is the other thing I just want to address in quickly. I don't know what time we're at here for our video. I just want to see what our total is at. Okay, so we got time. Doom and gloom stuff, any large poker community, of course, you're going to have great quality posts, which on the 2+2 forums, you get some of the best quality forum posts you'll see on topics. You also have people that are ridiculous, just like you're going to have on any forum, especially with one the size of 2+2, because it's like we're standing in Times Square, but on the internet, there's so many varying opinions. We wouldn't even want to hear all of them. On the internet, we get to, and we're very lucky. And, we have some people that have regularly, and I mean, their posting histories there. We can see their pattern throughout the last 5 years of their attempt at poker. We took some people that took some hard falls when they tried to move up, and I certainly have sympathy for that. But they are posting all over the internet, basically the very vocal minority that the game's dead. I've touched this on this before, and this is now I didn't see exactly where it's coming from. It really is coming from losing players in a lot of cases. I mean, that shouldn't shock people that have any experience outside of their living room, outside of the house. People exaggerate things. The misery loves company. Next thing you know, there's all sorts of stories. It's like telephone tag. Yes, this is greatly exaggerated that the game is unbeatable. It's just filled with bots and professionals. There's nobody to extract value from. You can't make any money. I mean, why are people on playing all over the world right now then? I mean, they're not just addicted to the game and throwing their money away, guys. I mean, honestly, that is so exaggerated. I swear to you, the game. Now, I've gotten much better than I was 3, 4 years ago. I'm finding these servers much easier to make money at and play at and just get involved in more games in general than there was 3, 4 years ago. It was like impossible to get your foot in the door then. I've done it now. Other people are doing it. And I mean, we're not giving you a success story here, but yes, we've gotten to the game. We've moved up in stakes. We've been playing for a while. We've never really lost a significant sum of money at poker. We're in. We're at least know what we're doing. We know it's software. There's other people that have just deposited $250, $300, in some cases $2,500 more, and played and burned it. And they said the game. I mean, they're really that bad. The game was rigged against me. I didn't have any chance to win. The game is extremely challenging. There's really no way that you could ascertain whether the game in a small sample was rigged against you, or if you were outplayed, or if it was just variance. So you can't make these definitive statements. We got people making very definitive statements. Further, I mean, I think part of it is also misery loves company, and they like to sour the pot, and I think that's what they don't want new players to get involved. And they are definitely dissuading some new players from getting involved because think about it. You have very little poker experience, and you read that on a professional forum. You say, well, I'm not going to deposit money and play against all sharks and bots, and that's not the reality of the situation. And I mean, if you look through some hand histories and look through some things, guys, there's guys, I mean, all the way up to 500 NL. I mean, there's guys making plays much worse than what I just showed you here. I mean, there's just going to be less of a ratio of players making plays that bad, but they're still there. So at 25 NL, there's no way you can stand there and say at 25-50 NL, the game's dead. You can't bluff anybody. There's no way to win. I mean, it's just not true. There's a lot of people winning. I mean, not proportionately because that's the nature of the beast. Like 85, 90, 95% somewhere in there are losing depending upon the format. That's the way the game works. It wouldn't be profitable to the other 15% if it wasn't that way, or the other 10% or 8% depending upon the format. So I mean, honestly, guys, I encourage you to get involved with this stuff, not because it benefits me. I don't run a site. You know what I mean? I'm not an affiliate of any poker sites. I don't benefit one bit, except that maybe you're not as good as me because you're new and I profit from some of your games. But what's the chances you're listening? We're going to have the same game. I really don't profit from this. I'm trying to, I just don't like injustices and people. I'm thinking of the guy, and I've talked to some. I talked to one on the Run It Once forums in an extensive thread this week, and it was pretty much, yeah, the bottom line is I understand your position, guys. You love poker. You really like playing at home. You play on maybe live or you don't, or, but whatever the case is, you want to play online poker, and you want to do so. You don't want to necessarily, you're not all of your tinfoil hats. Some of you just legitimately have concerns, and I understand that, and they are valid concerns. So you try to collect this information, see what are intelligent people saying, and there it is. You can't discern who's a good poster from a bad poster because you're new to the forum. I don't want you guys to be dissuaded from doing something that you're going to get enjoyment out of, that you're probably ultimately, look, if you're an intelligent person, you're a thinking player, you study the game like we're talking about here, you get deep on things, you join training sites, you discuss hand histories, eventually you're going to start winning. I mean, believe me, the deck is not stacked against you. It's not doomed. It's not hopeless. This other thing, and this is where I started off with this to come full circle, that this kind of software is killing the games, guys. If there's any way you think somebody's going to remember how many combos are in somebody's check folding range, on the turn, given this range and that range and XYZ board and these stack sizes. I mean, we're getting ridiculous with it. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't analyze them better. And of course, that's going to make players better. But is it killing the games? No, it's evolving the games. We have chess. We have computers like AlphaZero programs, these huge, giant engines just plugging away at a solution. They haven't found one yet. This is more complicated for something to just find a raw solution to because there's so many more variables. It's not just a fixed board with fixed squares and fixed pieces. So, don't go and hear these things, especially, again, it's summer. There The games are not extreme. I mean, even though we're winning overall, the games are not. They're nowhere near as profitable now as they are in like December and around like the holidays and everything. I mean, it's crazy then compared to now. I mean, there's guys just donating all over. I'm not saying the games overall are easy. Again, there's a higher ratio of fish, and it makes life much easier if you just add one fish more at every six max table than there is in June. We're talking about a huge difference in your win rate over a large sample, any sample, really. But over a large sample, I mean, it's almost guaranteed. You're looking at better games here, guys. No matter how bad you run, you're running bad. There's also going to be some guys that are just feeding you money at the same time that are not right now, so it balances things off. But we're doing this now, and I mean, it's summer. The people are down. The games that they're playing in aren't as profitable as they were. Maybe they've never won, so they're probably not going to start winning now unless they've really been working on their game. And then we have people that walked away from poker who still like it, but all they've done is lose, and they don't feel that the games have integrity to them, and they don't feel comfortable depositing more money. That's great, but don't come on forums and paint the picture that isn't true for other people who could have a very different experience, for worse, better or worse. Let's not try to, and let's not create fire where there, smoke and things like that, where there is no fire, because we have enough challenges in the poker industry, and we have enough challenges of bringing this back to a boom someday, hopefully, or even just a moderate, influx again, where we don't need to add to the hurdles that there is to that by creating, straw men conspiracy theories and, telling people that there's problems about going about getting started with online poker that aren't real just because you had a bad experience. Please don't do that. Please don't dissuade people from the games. The games will get juicier for you too if you let more new players come in. Let's not just be sour, have sour grapes and try to take the misery loves company approach and dissuade people from maybe joining and winning because you didn't. Work on your game. Use the equity calculators. Use solvers. Obviously, guys, I mean, I don't think this is a mystery. Do you think people are going to want to stop playing cards for money? Do you think people are going to want to stop playing poker, a format like this? Of course not. So if we got to a point where something was solved, obviously somebody's just going to have to change a few variables, add another street, something, create an additional complexity. And then, of course, we're in a new era. It's going to become a race then between, then that's solved. Then we have to update the game. Maybe that's the new era of games. Maybe chess in 15, 20, 30 years looks drastically different than it does today on the board. It looks different today than it did, 1,000 years ago. I mean, it's, we're in a new age. I mean, we have to deal with what we have to deal with. But throwing the hands here and saying, now that we've reached this level of technology, this game is dead. Absolutely not true. If you do any bit of research on that, I think you'll see that. But I wanted to really familiarize you guys with some of this software right away, and quell some of this, because that these things are like the demon. Somebody who uses the HUD like this, you see my results. I mean, I had some sessions where you see, I'm not guaranteed to win because I know what your VPIP, your PFR are, and I have a note that says that you like to call the river with no made hand, ace high. You did this. I could notice it on my own. I'm just keeping notes in order. I'm doing things. You could easily do it to me. Guys, I'm telling you, these are not just like auto win, things. Buy the software, you start winning. It's not like that. It's for people that want to dig deeper into their study and into their gameplay, furthering their understanding, furthering, of course, their win rate, but also with the knowledge that most of the good winning players are using these tools. So for you to not use them and then go out on the felt and lose, and then say that you weren't given a fair chance, just doesn't make any sense, guys. I mean, you knew you're giving yourself less than a fair chance. You're cutting off your nose to spite your face because you don't like the software. Guys, we have to deal with our reality. And I'm telling you, you get to a certain point in life, maybe you realize, I did, rather than be the vocal minority, rather than complain about things because it's not perfect, at some point, if you take that approach, and I did it for a few years in my life too, you look back at a handful of events and you realize you didn't enjoy them at all. Your complaints, your voicing of negatives, your things, and I'm not saying let's not address things that are legitimately wrong, like botting. I'm saying let's not blow things out of proportion, because you look, none of your complaints or your time spent complaining actually amounted to any change. You could have just enjoyed the game, and in retrospect, your complaint wasn't even as strong of one as you thought it was. If you could do it again, you would have just shut up and played. Honestly, I did that with a few things, and eventually I just gave up and said, you know what, Joe, you're exhausting yourself. Just get out of your head and play. That's my best advice. That doesn't mean you're gonna go on right now, deposit some money out of mission and win. That's the whole point. We don't know what you're gonna do, but I definitely wouldn't not deposit money and play, because everybody's Phil Ivey. There's 4 Phil Ivies and 2 bots at every table, and then somebody sits out, and here you come, and they're going to rip you to pieces. It's really not what the reality of the situation is, and the botting issue is real. I complained about it. I saw some what I thought were bots. I don't have any proof, but it's on an anonymous network. We only have a small sample size. There's really no way to prove it. I think some of because sites like WPN, Bet Online, PokerStars itself are coming down on the botting issue so hard. And of course, software is now being developed by bright people, bright programmers who are savvy to combat this problem. Obviously, if there's a site, which Ignition's one of them, where because of its format and its nature, the structure of it, it's going to make botting easier. Well, of course, they're going to try to flock there and see how they get away with it, if they get away with it, and how to what extent. I think that's happening. I don't have proof. I think there's a trend where some of the bots that were on these other sites are flocking to the Ignition model because of the anonymous nature and the fact that there just aren't as many. I think it's easier to get away with. That said, at the stakes I'm at, I don't find the bots particularly difficult to play against. And I don't, these are not like players that are going to sit there at my level and just, these accounts and just clean you out. Not unless you really make big mistakes. I mean, if you're going to just blow over a board with top pair and ignore the entire possibility a villain may have a set from the blinds, I mean, you're going to lose money. But if you're playing well and things like that, I mean, these situations, I mean, over time, that's I said, things become profitable. The swings become less. Variance runs out with more volume and things like that. But like I said, getting back on the point about bots, what my complaint with them is they're taking up a seat that a fish could be taking up or that a recreational could be playing up that's going to be much more profitable to the other players at the table. So no, do I find them to be like you're going to sit down and this guy's just going to be an incredible bot programmed by a brilliant mind and it's unstoppable? That's not what I'm finding. I'm sure there's much more, and from what I'm hearing, it's much more along those lines where it's very difficult to compete with some of them at higher stakes. 25 and L, what I'm finding is they don't play a lot of hands. A lot of times people put bots down and they gradually expand their ranges until they find out what's most profitable. So sometimes these bots are in works in progress. They either play no hands or they play a ton of hands. They're all over the place. But overall, I don't find them to be very profitable against any thinking player, but I do find them to be difficult to extract value from. Their programming is to a level where they don't get stacked much. And I mean, I'm talking about spots, guys. I mean, no, I don't have proof, but I'm talking about spots where their fold with their range would just be, considering they're betting up to that point on the 2 previous streets, let's say, on the river. I mean, it's an amazing exploitative fold. And to see that coming out of an account that's only played a few hands in maybe an hour and 20 minutes, it's strange. I mean, and it's in line with how some people have reported the botting and things like that. But guys, if that's your biggest challenge, don't worry because everybody knows it's happening. It's the #1 complaint from the poker community to everybody else is botting. I mean, it's being addressed more now than ever. I mean, I think we're in the tail end of the darkest days of this. I don't think it's going to be. It very well may never go away entirely. I think it's naive to think that it would at this point. The cat's out of the bag. There's going to be AI programs invading all aspects of life. Some where they're wanted, some where they're not wanted. But it's being addressed, and it's not like we're in the dark ages 3 years ago where we haven't had people in denial and said no, bots don't exist. I don't think there's anybody with a brain cell that no. It's like saying, let's not get into what it's comparisons. It's very naive to think that there's no bots out there. There is. It's a fact. But that's what I'm saying. So when a guy, but that's what I say, on the other end of the spectrum, when a friend of yours who used to play 2 and L says that there's bots everywhere ripping them off, no, there wasn't. There's no incentive for somebody to create the program and then put it at the absolute lowest stake so he could rip off a whole $6 from someone. That's not what they do. So there's things that are real, there's things that are not. But I can't see any, and I honestly, if you were my own, family, I wouldn't, and you love the game of poker and you have some experience, and I mean, you don't have any notorious gambling issues or anything, you just like playing poker, you like solvers like this, programs like this, software like this, well then, I can't give you, there's no reason for me to dissuade you from getting involved in this. I mean, there's really, all these things, sites are going to be shut down, your money's going to be stolen. It's a long time since Black Friday, and that hasn't happened to any of us again since. I mean, so you can, you could be afraid of the shadows in the dark, or live your life and leave the house again. And I mean, that's why I would suggest, that you at least browse the sites that I'm mentioning, look at your options, see, maybe just try one site first. But once you do and your foot's in the door, if you're people that your foot's already in the door, this is where we're going to be going in the future, is talking more and more about these programs and things. And I'm also going to start putting up some more beginner type videos, because I'm sure people are going to see some of these things that have never used, even heard of Power Equilab or Flopzilla or this DriveHUD, DriveHUD EQ at all. So they're overwhelmed. This video is obviously not teaching you how to do this stuff effectively. It was a very quick overview. But I'm going to make some videos to show you how to use those other pieces of software, since they're affordable, like Flopzilla and Power Web. You should get their hands on them, and it would be your beginning, the entrance to you starting to eventually work with GTO solvers and things. But I would start with the equity calculators first, or do both. But you definitely want to incorporate the equity calculators. It will also start painting you a mental picture through those hand matrices and things, like we look at in a range, a pre-flop range, where we can select all of this, and it'll start being something that you can picture while at the tables. So it'll ultimately be something that you start. If you, I don't know if you have, if all of you, I have a photographic memory. Um, in the sense that I think we all do to an extent. People say I have a photographic memory or I have great hearing. I think we all do have these things, but I think it's different. People excel via different methods of learning. I think this has been proven. Visual is very helpful for me. So with these, if you're like that, with these pieces of software and with the color codings and with that hand matrix, you're going to start visualizing a lot more than you realize when you're in these spots at the tables. And some of it's even subconscious. But like I said, you'll find yourself making intuitive decisions and saying, oh no, I didn't even think there. Yeah, you did. You didn't even realize it, but you did think. And then when you'll go back and look at the hand and say, well, actually, no, even when I think that was a great play, you're starting to gain intuition at the tables. These programs help tremendously. Um, so I want to wrap this up. That this one, I don't want to go too much longer because we've been on here for a while now. But I want to, and I don't want to overwhelm you guys. I want you to start looking into the sites. I want you to start looking into the software like DriveHUD, Power Equilab, Flopzilla, the equity calculators. In the next video, we'll start talking about some of the solvers that are out there on the market today, the GTO solvers. This is, and we'll probably get into that with a very basic introduction to GTO, which of course I'm no expert at this point, but I understand infinitely better than I did when I was at the point of where some of the newer people watching the video are going to be, where it's totally overwhelming. And even after I've watched hours of video and instruction, I still understand it, which then I know it's a complex subject. You got to really dig into the stuff. But GTO stands for Game Theory Optimal. Game theory is basically, I mean, you could take game theory in college. This can apply to any strategic element of any game or any game as a whole. Game theory optimal is basically making a way where you're unexploitable. Over time, you can't be beaten. You can be beaten over samples, but over time, your play is unexploitable in so many ways, to speak. And we we have programs and software like solvers today which start giving us what the optimal, according to theory, what the game theory optimal lines, betting patterns, approaches, ranges are in different situations with different holdings at different ranges. And that's what we'll get into next, but we'll dig deeper into DriveHUD. As soon as the beta comes out for GTO, the GTO tool for DriveHUD here, we're going, or we even get more information about it, we're going to do a video and highlight that, because I'm really interested, because this, I'll admit, the DriveHUD EQ is a lot better than I thought it was, and it did not take that long for me to figure out exactly what I was doing, and I think there's quite a bit more to it that I haven't even realized yet, but I wanted to get this up and out there. It's new. Like I said, some of you are new entirely. This is the kind of place to start. This is much easier to use than some of the other software out there. And it's really new. It's cutting edge and it's new. So I think it's a good place to start for you guys. But again, this is Joe. If that's people ask me how to pronounce my last name, it's Fianga. It's Italian. I'm not all Italian. I'm Irish, Italian, Ukrainian. But I'm very much American. I was born here. Like I said, I live in New York. I've moved around, bounced around, but I've pretty much always been a resident of New York, and very, very well always will be. And I keep saying every winter I say I'm going to get out of here, and because I can't deal with the winters anymore. But here I am again in the spring, and it's nice now, and I don't think I'll be leaving in May or June, so I'm here for now, and I'm doing my thing. I'd love to get some shots out to Vegas and playing casinos. But we're going to start with our live roll, and we'll talk a little. I'll make a video talking a little bit more about my progress too. It always accompany everything with that too. So but I'd like to get to some of the 1-2 games, 1-3 games in the local casinos around here in the Hudson Valley in Pennsylvania, Connecticut. And then, after I get my feet wet and get an idea of what I'm doing with the chips and everything, because I never played live, but then maybe go out to Vegas when I have, a little bit of a role established, know what I'm doing. But excuse me. For now, we're in, we're going to be spending the summer here in New York in the Hudson Valley. We're going to be doing these videos. We're going to be trying to improve our own game. I'm going to be trying to improve my game. You guys are going to be trying to improve your game. We're going to be gradually incorporating everything cutting edge into this because we believe that, I mean, we know technology is a path to improvement, a lot of things today. We're not going to just ignore it because we don't like it or we're scared or we're daunted by it or we wish it wasn't, the cat wasn't out of the bag. It is. It's not ruining the game. And it is something that you should be using and implementing into your studies. So, we'll get into some, like I said, we're going to be getting into the software. We're going to be getting into range v range, more of these conceptual ideas so that you understand what you're doing with the software and things like that. And then show you next time when we do it, we're going to show you quick, like how I would do a basic just rundown of like my database review from a previous session from hands I tagged and how we're going to use like a Power Equilab, a Flopzilla, and a DriveHUD EQ and everything and implement it to construct ranges for villain to see exactly what basically rate our own decisions and everything. And then I'm going to show you how to go and post that on a forum now and say, okay, I have my analysis, I have my ideas and my thoughts on that hand and what I did and what villain's range was. I've constructed one. I have one that DriveHUD EQ constructed. This is how they compare. Then go take and post all of that information on a forum and you're going to start getting some feedback, especially on like a run at once forum from some very knowledgeable people. And this is the way to really start expanding your game. Some few spots that you just feel clueless in, and you just, you go through hands, you read other people's hands, you discuss your own, but that's where we're going to be going. I'd like to, we had the holiday weekend, of course, I'd like to get more of these up throughout the summer, but we're going to be active and, we're also, I've been spending a ton of time on this because, in addition to all the stuff with the software and everything, which I enjoy tremendously working with all these things, but I've also been playing a lot. I played 700 hands on WPN earlier yesterday morning. I got some sleep. I worked with some of this stuff. I studied. So I mean, it's a lot to juggle and everything, but this is just the beginning of our journey, and it's been extremely fun. Busy in my book is good. Downtime is not. Having opportunities to do things that you enjoy and that you could be successful at, I think, is great. You want to be proactive in life. You want to be proactive in your poker journey. You want to be proactive in your learning and your studies. So we're going to branch out and all different things at one point too. We'll start getting into some mental game stuff because I have to be honest with you. You have people out there, oh, poker, it's gambling, it's bad, I don't like it, everything. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. I got to be honest with you guys. After playing some of these bigger pots, I can absolutely much more than I did beforehand. I mean, I could watch poker. I've watched huge pots on TV and on the internet. It's different when you're doing it, obviously, and it's your money involved. I can see why some people don't like gambling or poker or seeing that much money being thrown around in some cases what's basically an ego food fight between small blind and big blind per se. I don't have that distaste for those things, but I understand why some people, especially people working very hard for their money, and maybe a tough situation, don't like seeing that or don't approve it and they don't want to get involved. I totally understand. Like I said, I'm not one of those people. I think it's great, but what I do see is the complexity of these situations, and you have to control, and this is where we were starting with this, your mental state. You have to control your emotions. You have to start making decisions practically, no matter how much pressure is on the line or how flustered you may be or how much something had just repeatedly happened that you didn't want to happen. Things are not going to go your way in life. Things are not going to go your way at poker. What do we do? Just not see tomorrow? Of course not. We have to adapt, adjust, and that's what poker's about. And that's where, as I've gotten older here, I've spent more time with the tables. I've enjoyed the game more. I've developed more of a deeper interest in it and understanding, and it's helped me tremendously in my mindset day to day. And like I was saying in the beginning part of the video about people in traffic, things like that, we all have our things that bother us and set us off. My tolerance for these things has increased tremendously with poker. My mental game in poker has gotten so much better. There's a lot of good that can come from doing things like this. I think you see there's a complexity when you're using the theory and the math and you're studying and you're using these programs and the software. This isn't just gambling, throwing money around, like we're playing craps in the back alley. There's an actual, there's a method to our madness where, this could be done very responsibly and very safely. So, I'll wrap this up here. You guys take all of that under consideration of your own. Start looking into these pieces of software, and I will definitely make sure I'm back very shortly with some other videos, even if they're quick. Just to get, I'll maybe do a quick one on how to use some of this software quick, just to get your feet wet, a little deeper than we did today, and then maybe get in some, like I said, some database analysis and hopefully that GTO plus the GTO solver, the tool that's coming out the beta for DriveHUD. Hopefully we'll have some information about that by the next video that we can start digging into also. So it's unofficially the start of summer. Everybody be safe, start enjoying yourselves, enjoy the nice weather. It was a long winter, and we will go from here. Have a nice night. Talk to you guys soon. And this was Joe, and I will be posting. I just want to put in the bottom here some links at this point in the videos to different software that I'm mentioning in here, so it's easy. You know, guys, I don't have to go scouring around, and I'll try to get some instructional videos, tutorials for some of the software because the developers done a good job putting that out there. I want to make it easier for you guys to find too. So you'll have my instruction and a human element of teaching. Plus, you'll always have some tutorial videos. So that's where we'll go. But thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will be back to talk to you guys very soon. This is Joe Fianga. Have a nice night.